John,
Good morning.
to the Ag Committee, we, sorry to hold you up but we've been running basically full bore and here we are. So, let's make the most of it. You want to give us, like an overview of, what you folks, how you're doing and how much more food you need or could use and all the good things. How many people
Yes,
servicing?
thank you. And thank you to the committee for making the time. I'm John Sales. I'm CEO of the Vermont Food Bank. And thank you for that. You know, you said a quick break, and oftentimes those stretch out, but this one didn't. So, and I don't need a whole hour, so I'm going to go through the materials I have pretty quickly because most of you are familiar with the food bank, so just a reacquaintance, and then really want to hear any questions that you have. So I'm going to pop my slides up on the screen. Can you all see that?
Yep.
Yes.
Great, thank you. So just a quick briefing on where the food bank is in 2024. I'll start out by saying we did have a desire, an ask for $2 million in base budget funding in the Budget Adjustment Act so that we can continue to provide the service at the level we're providing it now to our, over 300 partners across the state this year. And then an additional FY25 budget ask of $3 million for a total of $5 million. Now, I know the budget adjustment is hot and heavy. I think they're going to get that out tomorrow. So I'm not sure. The House, right. Thank you. And I'm not sure where we are right there. But the process is the process and we're engaging in it. That's the food bank. Let me see. Now my slides are not advancing for some reason.
I did not admit that I could get.
I think that's me. I'm going to stop the share and start it again. See if that'll help.
So you don't know, John,
Yep.
if you're in or if you're out on the House side, yet?
We don't know yet. So we just don't know. It's a vibrant conversation right now.
Yeah.
So I'm, for some reason, not able to advance. Oh, there we go. Okay. Sorry about that. So we're in flux. We haven't been told we're totally out, but we also are not necessarily in. So I'll just go quickly. Food bank, we're the only food bank in Vermont. So we're different than the food shelves and meal sites all across the state. And we serve all 14 counties. The food bank has 3 distribution centers. I'm at our distribution center in Barre right now, and we have one also in Brattleboro and in Rutland. The food bank distributes food last year, 12.6 million pounds. This year, we're actually on track to hit about 15 million pounds. Demand is up and we're being able to maintain supply. And we do that through this network of food shelves and meal sites and schools and hospitals, and also through direct distributions, mostly through our Veggie Van Go, but also to SASH sites, which is support and services at home. We also support all your constituents with SNAP, which is in Vermont, 3 Squares Vermont, food stamps, application assistance. So if somebody thinks they're eligible, they can call or text or email the food bank, and our folks will actually sit down with people and take them through the application process until the point where they actually get their benefits and have their card. We have a SNAP application or education program, and we also work with all the food shelves and meal sites all around the state with what we call VT Fresh, which is a nutrition and fresh food and education program. A lot of recipes and cooking demos and trying new things. as I said, we serve all 14 counties. So this map shows all the locations. The darker blue circles have a number in them. That's the number of different locations at those spots, and the yellow circles are the ones with more than 10. So as you can see, we're up in Brighton all the way down to 10 partners in Bennington, 10 in Brattleboro. We're there in the islands, up in St. Albans, so all over the state.
Hey, John, do you
Yes.
distribute to all of them or to the hubs, and then the hubs distribute out to the satellite places?
That's a great question. No, we distribute directly to all of these partners. There is a little bit of kind of redistribution that goes on, but it's very small. And part of that is based on our food safety standards. We want to make sure that we're have some control over the supply chain or the chain of custody until it actually gets to the food shelf, and then right from there into the hands of the folks who need the food. So how we work, really three main sources of food: federal foods, which is the Commodity Supplemental Food Program. That's a box. All the foods are provided by the federal government, by USDA. We build the boxes here at the food bank using volunteers, and then they go out. It's about close to 2,000 of those a month to folks who are over 60 and income eligible under the federal program. You were talking about the Farm Bill with the last witness, and there's some changes coming up to the CSFP program, which will hopefully make it a little bit easier for the folks who are participating in the program to get the boxes and maybe build up our caseload in Vermont a little bit. I was just down yesterday meeting with a bunch of food banks regionally in Connecticut, and the USDA from the Northeast Regional Office were there also. So we got a big download on everything that's happening at USDA. The other USDA program is TFAP, the Emergency Food Assistance Program, which is federal commodities that the AMS, Agricultural Marketing Services of USDA, they actually purchase food. They have a budget of about $250 million a year, and that food is distributed throughout the country, mostly to food banks, but also to community action agencies and others. So the food bank in Vermont is the subcontractor for the state. So technically the TFAP foods go to the state, and the food bank manages that program on behalf of the state.
What type of foods do you get from TFAP?
So TFAP is a huge variety. So it's a lot of shelf-stable food. So canned fruits and vegetables, pasta, rice, beans, just really staples, right? Flour, sugar. We also get protein. So they have, chicken and tuna in pouches. We get sometimes frozen, fresh and frozen. So we get, for instance, they just added to TFAP frozen haddock, frozen pollock. Sometimes we get pork, mostly sausages. Another part of TFAP is what they call Section 32, bonus buys, we call them. So when there's a market, something's wrong in the markets, say, for instance, there's a feed shortage and people are slaughtering flocks of chickens. USDA doesn't want all that extra chicken dumped on the market, and that would lower prices. So USDA comes in and makes purchases, big bulk purchases of, millions of pounds of chicken. Then they'll have it processed and it will be distributed through the TFAP program. So that's an agricultural support program and not a hunger relief program, but it serves a hunger relief function.
How do you determine, or who determines how much, like, Vermont gets?
Yeah, USDA has a formula, and it's based on the poverty level and the unemployment level in each state. And so Vermont will get an allocation of whatever's available nationally. And then if some food banks or others don't want their allocation, then USDA will we'll find others. We get a lot of bonus, and here in Vermont, unless we absolutely don't have room for it in one of our facilities, we always say yes to bonus.
Yeah.
You know, we'll get things like frozen blueberries from Maine, which we just got. We got walnuts, dates, a whole truckload of dates. So it's some interesting stuff.
Yeah.
So we also get donated food. About half of our food in total is donated. Most of the donated food, the bulk of it comes from corporate and businesses. So both nationally, we're part of the Feeding America network, which is a national network of 200 food banks. And they have relationships with all the large producers, you know, ConAgra, General Mills, Tyson. And so we can get national donations, truckloads. You know, we'll split them with our neighbors sometimes in New Hampshire, Maine, or Massachusetts. And then local farms. So we both purchase and get donations from local farms. The food bank, I just saw the number. Last year, we worked with 311 Vermont farms. And that's from donations, gleaning, where we actually have volunteers that go out into the fields and pick what they're not going to harvest. And our Vermonters Feeding Vermonters, that's the purchase program. And then when we purchase, we often get extra donations in with our Vermont farmers. And then the purchase foods too. So the Vermont purchase foods, Vermont farmers and producers, through Feeding America, they have a national purchase program. And we can buy, for instance, you know, oranges from California or Florida. We can get cherries from Michigan. We can get stuff all over. Usually Vermont's not taking huge advantage of that because the foods are coming from California, Texas, Florida, Washington State, and just the transportation costs are pretty tremendous. And we have to cover the transportation costs. We also buy food from local folks. We buy chicken from Misty Knoll. We buy eggs from Maple Meadow Farm. We buy cream from can't remember the name of the dairy, but we work with local dairies, buy cream and butter to distribute. And where does that food go? It goes all over the state. So the CFSP, as I talked about, is a box that gets directly delivered to folks either where they're living or they can come close by and do a pickup. Our network partners, which are our food shelves and meal sites and other community organizations. Our Veggie Van Go, I mentioned, which is our direct distributions. Those are mostly at sites of schools and hospitals. And we do, I think, about 60 sites around the state. And the schools, we go every other week, and the hospitals, we go once a month. And then at SASH sites, at about 70 or 80 SASH sites around the state, these are mostly senior housing sites. We just drop fresh produce packed in boxes. And then there's coordinators at each SASH site that work for Department of Human Services. And they, help the folks get the foods that they need out of those fresh foods and make sure folks are able to prepare them. And then the backpack program, which is our school-based bag of foods that go out on Friday. Kids' parents will sign up for the program, and Friday afternoon, a teacher or someone at the school, the coordinator, will discreetly tuck this package of food into the kids' backpacks when no one's in the room, and then they take that home. We're also have been opening. Oh, is there a question?
Yeah, a couple. The schools, we have the Universal Meals, School Meals Program now. But you still deliver some food to the schools. Is that right?
Absolutely. This food is for when the kids are not in school. So we do it on Friday to help the food insecure households have food over the weekend.
That's a backpack program though, right?
That's right.
But back up, you go to schools, hospitals, directly, distribute fresh foods to people.
Yeah, those are the veggie van goes, those are a drive-through fresh food distribution. So it's almost all fresh produce. And then, there's oftentimes eggs and yogurt and other kinds of protein, but folks will come and just drive through and get food loaded in their cars. So it's not actually food delivered to the school or the hospital.
It's
That's the site we use.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
Yeah, that's
I
good.
wanted that too.
And the backpack program, I know several schools, they take what is left at lunchtime. They put it on, package it and put it on a shelf and wherever the cafeteria is, and kids, children, students can pick that up on their way out of school and take it home for an evening meal or snack. But you also provide a backpack with schools. Is that all schools or do they have to sign up for this?
They have to sign up, and we do I think it's about 120 schools right now are part of the backpack program. We've been expanding it, almost every year for about 10 years. There are some schools too that do a backpack program they arrange it themselves. For instance, in Montpelier, the elementary school, it's the Elks Club, I think, or maybe the Lion. One of the civic organizations runs the backpack program. We're also moving towards having actual pantries in schools, so a place where kids can go at the end of the day and just like a meal site or a food shelf in the town. There's one right in the school. It gives the families more choice. And for instance, they have a great one at the JFK school in Winooski. When they rebuilt the school, they built a little store. Actually, it has not just food, but it has clothing and menstrual products and paper products, all kinds of things to help support the families. The impact, as I said, this year, 12.6 million pounds of food, and we're on track for more than that this year. Demand has gone up. If you talk to folks in your communities, they will tell you that. 311 farms through purchasing and gleaning. And that 2.3 million staying in the local economy, that's what the food bank last year spent purchasing locally, both for produce and protein, just Misty Knoll and the Jericho Settlers Farm and Paul Mazza and everyone around. Big farms, small farms. For the very small farms, we actually do grants to the local food shelves, and then they will contract with local farms for maybe they'll just get 3 CSA shares that get delivered every week so that they have some local fresh produce for folks coming into the food shelf. When you think about COVID, since COVID began in March 2020 until now, the food bank has distributed 60 million pounds of food. So obviously that's more than 12 million pounds a year. And the increase that we've seen, I'll show you in the next few slides, that we're still seeing huge demand for folks. These numbers are from 2022 in the University of Vermont, 2 and 5 folks. And this is not people necessarily struggling every day, but have had some experience with not being able to afford enough food at some time during the year. And we're, as I said, we're still seeing and hearing about increased need for folks going to food shelves. In fact, the House Ag Committee was visiting the food bank today and heard from one of the members there, had talked to the person at their food shelf in Johnson, and they've seen 100% increase, a doubling of the number of people coming in the last year. And you can see here, I can't see it. You know, in when COVID hits, of course, everything blew up. That little blip you see going down, that's when folks had extra Three Squares benefits. They had the direct payments, and they had the child tax credit, and things actually got better for a little bit. Then all those federal supports ended, and inflation hit, and we had another jump. Again, this is 2022 numbers, and things are probably a little bit different now. We just don't know exactly what those numbers look like, and we're working on getting them for you. Three Squares Vermont, you know, the SNAP program is the most effective and efficient way to address hunger. You know, getting people the cards that have the resources to go to the grocery store and shop for the foods that they want and need is, you know, that is a solution, right? And you can see here during COVID, when there were a lot of supports, there was a little dip in the number of people accessing Three Squares Vermont. And then when those supports started going away, there was another increase. And we think that the trend, we're probably staying close to where we are, a little bit above 70,000. This is the number of people who we're serving directly through our Veggie Van Go mobile distributions across the state. As you can see over the years, we've just seen a steady increase. The bumps and dips are about seasonality and about, you know, right now in the winter, if it's going to be 20 below or we're going to have a foot of snow, we have to reschedule or cancel Veggie Van Goes, and that can account for some of the bumps. But definitely the overall trend is we've been seeing more and more folks. And as far as the number of pounds we've been distributing as the food bank, you can see we were had settled into this post-COVID about 1 million pounds a month. And then you see the floods when we spiked up from under 1 million pounds a month to about 1.4 million. And while we've come down from that, we're bouncing around a little bit, but definitely seeing a higher, you know, average is, you know, about, as you can see, I think we're averaging out about, you know, between 1.2 and 1.3 million pounds. That's every month. And then the impact of the floods. So we had a 40% increase in food distribution, you know, and it's not just people who are directly, you know, their houses were flooded. This is jobs lost, businesses that had to shut down temporarily or permanently, you know, people doubling up and tripling up, stressing, you know, folks who are already maybe not doing as well as others. And this is, you know, the challenge is beyond where the actual flooding happened, you know, people moving in with relatives in different places or being displaced and living in another town. So we're seeing a trickle of this happening across the state. You know, and the flooding was just kind of the last of a cascading series of crises, right? We had COVID and all the ups and downs. We had the federal programs that came and went. We had inflation. And although, you know, when you read the Wall Street Journal, inflation is way down. I read a really interesting article this morning about how people perceive inflation being higher than it is. And part of that is because food prices keep going up. And while, you know, the cost of a flat screen TV, a big purchase, has gone down, the cost of food keeps going up, and people buy food every day. So they notice, you know, when the Snickers bar goes up a nickel, they notice that. And they don't notice when a washing machine is $75 cheaper.
John, on your food distribution, we have quite a few people that are homeless. Do you ever deliver to them, or Or do they have to go to one of these, spots on the map to collect food?
Yeah, we don't do direct service to homeless folks. There are a lot of our partners that do outreach. So it's not necessarily up to the folks to go to one of our network partners. For instance, I know Feeding Chittenden in Burlington does a lot of outreach to the homeless, and they use our food. In fact, they prepare meals for folks who are living in the hotels and motels. And a lot of that food they're using comes from the Vermont Food Bank. So in that case, you can kind of look at us as a wholesaler. You know, COTS is a network partner, so they get food from the food bank. Right here in Central Vermont, Capstone Community Action, they also prepare meals and distribute those to folks who don't have housing or who are living in hotels and motels.
Do you know, is that delivered free of charge, or is there a small charge?
No, all that is free of charge. We do have at the food bank kind of up a level. A lot of the food that we distribute is free. So all the federal food, there is never a charge for federal food, not even a delivery charge. And we have a lot of our produce is always delivered at no charge. But we have a co-op purchasing program. So a lot of our partners don't get all of their food from the food bank. They also raise money and purchase food. And so we'll buy by the truckload, and then they can purchase through us in a kind of a co-op program, you know, by the case, and then we'll deliver it. So it's not all free food, but mostly free food. And that is one of the things, getting to this slide. So over the last couple of years, while demand has gone up pretty dramatically, the amount of donated food has not increased as much. And that federal food I was talking about, the CSFP and TFAP, tends to fluctuate based on, you know, what's happening in Washington, frankly. You know, right now, you know, thank goodness the Farm Bill was, you know, we had a continuing resolution for another year, but the TFAP and CSFP amounts are set in the Farm Bill. So if we don't get a Farm Bill when this one runs out, that's going to plummet down to zero. And, you know, it's uncertain. And the grocery industry, as you know, keeps getting more and more efficient. And that means fewer leftovers to come to food banks. So food banks across the country, we've been purchasing more and more food. And really that's the focus of this ask, is that we can continue purchasing food at the level we can, and knowing that we can make local purchases whenever possible. We support a lot of local farmers. You know, several $1 million worth of local purchases is nothing to sneeze at. And we have farms. I think a good example is Laughing Child Farm in Paulette, where they grow sweet potatoes. And you know, we are a regular purchaser of sweet potatoes. We are a very good customer for that farm, and probably have allowed them to expand what they've done. You know, when it's protein, eggs, I mentioned Maple Meadow Farm. You know, we are a very good customer for them. So we think it's important to recirculate and support our local agricultural community, because we want folks to be connected to food that's being produced in Vermont. And as I said, again, we're seeking $2 million in base funding and budget adjustment, and then an additional $3 million in FY25. Be happy to answer any questions.
Yeah, questions from Irene?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Can you remind me what an increase that is over what was set aside last year in the budget?
Last year, the food bank had an appropriation of $3 million.
Okay, thank you.
And that was a one-time.
Right.
Rich?
It was, did you say that none of the 2 million was in the, governor's budget?
That's right. I did talk with Adam Gresham back in September, and, made the pitch, but we did not get into the governor's budget.
Okay.
Other questions?
Also, very helpful,
Great,
very helpful.
all set.
Yeah, thank you.
John.
Good. Thank you all for your time. I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you, John, for waiting and, thanks for the presentation.
Yeah, if you have any, we'll let you know if we need your help. And if you have any other questions, feel free to call us in. We're always happy to talk.
Thank you.
Yeah, pardon.